everyone. It's January 11th, so I wanted to wish you all a Happy New Year. How many of you put together New Year's resolutions this year? Just a few? Okay. How many of you had New Year's resolutions last year? Okay, just a few as well. And how many of you actually follow through with your New Year's resolutions? Okay. Can I tell you, it's actually not the resolution that fails you, it's the implementation that fails us. Okay? How many of us know how to be at our ideal weight? You guys should be raising your hands. Okay? We basically exercise more and eat right. Okay? How many of us are always at our ideal weight? Okay, so there's a gap there, isn't there? There's a gap between setting a goal for a resolution and actually implementing that resolution. There's also a gap between knowing and doing. Knowledge does not equate to change in behavior, okay? And that gap between setting a goal and actually implementing, and the gap between actually knowing what to do and doing it sometimes can be a chasm. It can be a chasm as wide as the Grand Canyon, okay? And why? Why do we have the chasm between what we know what we want to do and what we actually do? It's because of stress, it's because of fear, and it's because of habitual patterns that we fall into, okay? So let's talk about the stress first. So, I'm trying to relate this back to our speaking businesses. So we certainly have stress with our business because we are running a business, aren't we? There's all sorts of stress. It's not just the stress of getting up here when you're doing your presentation, you know, the stress of actually coming up with a good presentation. There's the stress of sending out the emails, the follow-up. Is this going to be a financially viable option for me? Okay, so there's a lot of stress that comes with our speaking business. But stress, the actual sort of definition of it is, if you feel you have the adequate resources to deal with any situation, your stress level decreases. If you feel you do not have the adequate resources to deal with a situation, that's when your stress level increases, okay? And those resources could be time, those resources could be money, those resources could be, do I have the credibility factor? Do I have the correct resume? I can't remember who said they helped put together resumes, or, okay, yes, okay. Okay, so you're looking at the situation, and if you feel you have adequate resources to deal with it, your stress level decreases. If you feel you do not have adequate resources, your stress level will increase. Okay, so now let's imagine that this, like to the top of my hands, is what is, everything below is what I am today, okay, what all of you are today. And what you're trying to do is anytime you make change, you're trying to get to an expansion, right? So you're trying to go from here to here. So everything within inside of here, I already know, right? That is my known quantity. That's who Tammy is already. But when I'm trying to expand, I want to start doing speaking, or I want to start doing any other business, you're going to an unknown, right? You're going to a place that you're not in. Well, what did I just say stress was? Stress is, do you feel you have the adequate resources to deal with it? Well, what about when we go to an unknown? We don't know if we have adequate resources, time, money, credibility factor, okay? So that creates stress for us. So again, anytime we're trying to go to the expansion, to be our biggest, our best, our brightest self, that's where stress will set in. And of course, we all know stress has cortisol levels that will actually wreak havoc on our bodies, right? So in the long ago, when the saber-toothed tiger was about to pounce, stress was awesome because it helps increase your heart rate and it helps get you ready to respond, and so you can quickly get out of a situation, okay? However, when you are just living our day-to-day lives and you have stress going on, it can wreak havoc again on our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. So we need to be able to manage the stress in order to be successful, okay? Let's talk a little bit about fear. So can I tell you a little secret? Successful people have not eliminated fear from their lives. There's nothing that could be further from the truth. Successful people actually do have fear, but the difference is they face it and they do not let it be a limiting factor. So to think you can ever eliminate stress from your life is not true. It's just you have to have the courage to be able to face it. Okay? So getting back to that example I was saying, like if everything below my hands is me, it's the known me, but I want to expand. I want to expand and be different. That's where the fear comes in, right? Because one of my favorite authors of all time is Marianne Williamson. And she has been quoted even by Nelson Mandela, where the quote is, "We never fear our small self." That is not what we fear. We fear our light. We fear our greatness. We fear, because again, right, that's a growth pattern. That's something new. That's something unknown. So we fear our brightness. We fear our light. We fear our greatness. We do not fear who we are today. So here's a quote for you, which is, "The treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to enter." Right? Because here you are. We want to be here with our speaking business or any aspect of your life. It's really applicable. We want to be here. Well, we fear that. But here's the treasure we seek is beyond ourselves, but we fear to enter that cave. So we need to be able to be courageous to get onto the other side of that fear. Here is a quote that may make you feel really uncomfortable. "Opportunity is never lost, as someone who has more courage and more conviction will find a way to seize it." Okay? So there's all sorts of people who come up with inventions that they don't have the conviction to follow it through. The opportunity will never be lost because there are 7 billion people on this planet, and there's going to be somebody else who will actually seize that opportunity. And of course, this is your life. You were put here. If you're not going to be Rick, who's going to be Rick? Right? So therefore, Rick needs to get to his expansion and to live his best life possible. So you are either heading in one of two directions in your life. You are either shrinking and dying, or you are growing. Okay? Life is short. Let's not think that we're going to be here forever, and let's not act like we're going to be here forever. Let's get going now. Okay? So, because it is a short time, let's make it a good time. Although 80 is very young. So, let me first tell you a personal story before I get into my actual topic, in that I've had to deal with a lot of stress and a whole lot of fear in my own lifetime, as I'm sure we all have, right? No one's immune from this. So I was married for a period of about 16 years when my former spouse came home and he said to me, "I'm done being married to you, and I know how much you love the children, so you can have them." So, yeah, I wasn't laughing, but I can laugh now. So he came home and he said that, and he took off with a 25-year-old girl. And here, I'll back up in my story in that years ago, when he and I had first gotten married, we had the same jobs. We had the same level of income. We had the same level of potential. And I was married, so I believed in contributing to the marriage basket. And so I did. And there came a time where he said, "Okay, well, biologically, you're the one who can have children. Why don't you stay home and we're going to advance my career? And in order to move up the corporate ladder, we're going to have to move a lot, so it just makes sense from a whole family perspective to only have one person working." And I was fine with that. I contributed to the marriage basket, and I ended up staying home. So I had not worked for a period of about 12 years when he came home and he said that to me. So my immediate response, because for me, the rug was pulled out from underneath of me, okay? And my whole world was changed literally overnight. I was like a wet noodle on the floor. I was like a deer during hunting season. I felt like my whole insides were just ripped out on the ground. I mean, I really did. I was a mess. I would look at the clock and I felt like it didn't record time. I felt like it was stuck, just like me. And I didn't know what to do. I really did not know what to do. So after about 5 weeks of just crying nonstop and literally shaking nonstop, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything. I thought, well, this is really no way to live. So you're eventually gonna have to stand up and move on. And so I did. Now again, I had not worked in over 12 years, and all of the data that I looked at, that I read, said, no one will hire you, you're a dinosaur, your skills are outdated, good luck with that. So I decided not to read those articles anymore. And I actually did go back into the workforce because I felt like I needed to do that. So this is 8 years later, and I am an executive director. I'm an executive director of a very large healthcare system. I'm over 16 hospitals for physician management services. Most recently, I went live with an international health supplement company, which I am the chief executive officer of. I'm helping my daughter start her own high-end purse company. We've been to New York. We've got that going. And then I'm trying to grow my speaking business as well. Now, I do not say that at all to impress you. I say that to impress upon you that, do you think I had fear? Do you think I was able to, I rose up the corporate ladder. When I look back even, I think, wow, I'm not even like my former self. I was on the floor, unable to breathe. And do you think I had stress? I was raising my children 100% by myself. Their father lives in another state. So I climbed the corporate ladder while raising my children 100% by myself. There were lots of tears. There was a lot that I faced, but I had a goal in mind, which was to climb the corporate ladder. And so that was my life. I had the kids. I was going to do it that way, or it wasn't going to happen. So let's talk about this. The actual key to success is action, okay? So you have to take action. Even if your options are not that great, you still need to get up off the couch, I promise you. Okay, my first job back in the workforce after not working 12 years was not my dream job. It is not what I wanted to do. It actually kind of sucked. I did not like it. But I took it because it was my first step, and it opened up doors along the way, okay? So you need to take action. I know all of you know Joe Seba, and he's made this comment. He said the start is what stops most people. Most people don't even know where to start, or they're afraid they don't know how to start. Again, it's the stress and the fear that's impacting that. Leonardo da Vinci is famous for saying, I have been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Being willing is not enough, we must do. So you must take action. All of this, but again, remember I started out by saying we know what to do, but there's this big chasm between what we actually do. We need to take action in between, okay? We actually have to take action. This is another quote which I absolutely love. We should stop waiting for our ship to come in, and we should build it ourselves, okay? Waiting is inaction, building is action, okay? If you have a goal, and we all know this, let's say I'm in LA and I have a goal to go to New York City. And I can get in my car and I can program it. I don't have to know how to get to New York City. I can program it in the GPS and I can start going. And even if I had from LA and I want to go to New York, but I start heading out towards Seattle, the GPS is going to help me, right? It's going to gently guide me to my direction of New York. But I'm not going to be getting to New York if I don't get off the couch and get in the car and put the car in gear. Our universe is the same. Our universe gently guides us when we make what would be considered errors in heading to Seattle instead of heading to New York. It really does. I know this for a fact when I look at my own life. I look at how many steps I've taken, which originally didn't seem very fruitful, but in the end they were. Okay, so action, but you can't get to any of this unless you take action. So here's another saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me. No one's going to discover you. You need to get out there and make it happen, okay? If it's going to be, it's up to me. There's even a biblical reference to this. Faith without works is dead, okay? Here's one that's going to make you uncomfortable. If you don't build your dream, someone's going to hire you to build theirs. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to keep advancing every single direction towards your dreams and your desires, okay? So we all know the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? The tortoise was very methodical, slow and steady. never lost sight of the finish line, kept going, kept going. What did the hare do? The hare started out fast, but the hare fell asleep under the tree. Don't we methodically, or we do this as well, right? We start out, we have a goal, we want to get there. We have a goal, right? Our New Year's resolution. The big chasm of implementation is we will metaphorically fall asleep under a tree, and we will lose sight of our goal. We need to be more like the tortoise. It's the consistency over the time. Those folks who are in health and body and all that, I mean, you're not going to die by eating one McDonald's burger. You are if you eat them every day. But if you eat one, so what, right? It's the slow, methodical consistency over time that gets you results, okay? Here's another quote. Opportunity dances with those that are already on the dance floor, okay? And we want to stop sitting on the sidelines of life. Even if you are on the right track, if you're sitting there, you're going to get run over. Okay, you need to take action. One of the greatest inventors of all time is Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison is famous for several inventions, one of them being the incandescent light bulb. Some of you already may know the story, but he failed, right? He picked the wrong filament 10,000 times before he finally came up with the right filament for our incandescent light bulb. And what he said was, I did not fail. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Okay? That's the kind of mindset, you talk about mindset, that people have to have. It's, oh great, it's actually moving you to your goal. Action helps you because you learn what works and what doesn't work. But you're not going to learn what works when you're sitting on your couch. Okay? Success is something that you go to. It does not come to you. You go to it. And then I came up with my own little acronym for the word action, which is a consistent theme in ongoing nurturing and then of your goal. So action is the consistent theme of ongoing nurturing of your goal. So let's talk about, now that we all agree, action, we have to take action, right? Some people will say, well, that's great, Tammy, but I don't have time. Okay, I'm all for it. I'm an action lady, or I'm an action man. I'll do it, but I have no time. Well, what I'd like to tell you is that, did you know that 1 hour a day, just 1 hour a day over an entire year, that's 365 hours, correct? If we take 365 and we divide it by 40, because work weeks are 40 hours, that's 9 40-hour work weeks. 1 hour a day. So if I were to go to my boss and I said, I'd like to take all of January, I would like to take all of February, and I would like to take a week or two, depending on the number of days or weeks, in March to do stuff for Tammy. Not for you, I'm going to spend January, February, and a week or two in March on mine. That's literally how much time 1 hour a day is. So for people who say they don't have the time, that's absolutely not true. Okay? If you want to find out what someone values, grab their checkbook and grab their calendar. Because people will spend their time, their energy, and their resources on the things that matter to them. Okay? They will. People lie, but behaviors do not. So if someone says, oh no, I love to golf, I love to golf, I love to golf, and it's never on their calendar, they don't love to golf. Because you will find time for the things that really matter to you. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question. How many of you think you could raise $10,000 by next week?
For what?
Okay. Okay. How many of you think you could raise $10,000 next week if it meant buying a pill that would save your child's life? If it meant buying a pill that would save your spouse or somebody you love? How many of you think you could raise that $10,000 by next week? Okay? So you know what it comes down to? It comes down to the why. So how much do you want your goal? Here's another quote that might make you very uncomfortable. Lose your excuses so you can find your results. Okay? It's what is your big why? Why do you want to do this speaking business? You have to answer that. And if it's a big enough why, I promise you, you'll find the time and the energy and the resources to do it. Answer, what is your big why? Okay, so let's get into some of the reasons that the stress and the fear and why we have that big chasm between knowing and doing. Number one, we all have something called our constant companion. What I'm talking about is the voice inside your head. Okay? So I don't know about you guys, but the voice inside my head can sometimes be really mean. She can be really mean. In fact, if the voice inside my head were sitting right next to me, I'm not really a violent person, but there are times I think I would punch her. I mean, she's that mean.
Yeah.
Right? And if the voice that's inside my head were sitting out next to me on the couch and she were my friend, I'd probably say, please leave. You are mean. Get out of my life. But yet the voice is inside my head and she's taking up real estate. And she's saying some pretty critical things about me, to me. Now, originally our voice is really designed for protection. Really, I mean, her intention, his intention is actually really to help you out. It really is. So, let's say I mentioned to you I'm single, I'm divorced, been for the last 8 years. So let's say I go to a social function and I walk in and there's some really cute guy across the room. And I'm looking at him, maybe he glances my direction, you know, and I'm ready to go walk over there, but the voice inside my head says, really? Why? You know his type. He's just gonna break your heart. Don't go over there. Do not start a conversation with him. So the voice is trying to keep me small, right? Tammy, don't go talk to that guy. She's not trying to hurt me. She's really trying to protect me, right? So the voice can sometimes make very critical comments to protect you. But what if the man across the room is my soulmate, the man of my dreams? If I listen to the voice, I may actually not meet then my soulmate or the man of my dreams. So again, let's imagine, here we are, and we want to go to the expansion. Guess when our voice is the loudest? When we're going to our expansion. So we have to be able to retrain the voice inside our head to actually be our cheerleader, to actually say good things about us, okay? When I was younger, I had an aunt who used to tell my mom, nobody has to critique Tammy. She is her own worst enemy. And I was, and it served me well for a while, but there's a limit. So I actually have 4 college degrees. I have 2 undergraduate degrees, and I have 2 master's degrees. And a lot of that was because I was incredibly disciplined and because I did have a voice that was very critical and very motivating and kept me moving. However, then you get to a certain point and that voice is my enemy, truly. So we have to retrain the voice inside our head to actually be our cheerleaders and not actually be someone that is limiting us right when we're getting to that expansion. Okay, here's 2 more quotes. So again, remember our voice is trying to limit us and to keep us safe. So know that every single expert, anybody who's an expert, was once a beginner. Right? Every master was once a disaster. Right? They had to retrain their voice to be able to get to where they are. You don't start out as an expert, you start out as a beginner. So what else can end up being part of that chasm between knowing and doing? One of it's how do we manage our time? Let me give you this example of what I would say is our energy dollars. So every day when you wake up, just imagine for a moment you look under your pillow and there's 100 energy dollars there, okay? And you need to use those energy dollars to get through your day, okay? So you take your energy dollars and you use them to get dressed, brush your teeth, go to work, get things done, right? I'm spending my energy dollars on today, January 11th. But a lot of us, you know what we do with our energy dollars? We do not spend them wisely, okay? I'll take some of those energy dollars that were meant for today and I'll spend them on, oh, my mother used to drive me crazy, and you know, something that happened in the past. So I'll take today, January 11th, $100, and I'll spend them in the past. Can I change my past? I'm wasting my money. What about some of those 100 energy dollars that were meant for today's productivity? Writing your book, right? Instead I'm like, oh, I'm worried about the future. What if this happens? So I'm taking my 100 energy dollars and spending them in the future. What if this doesn't happen? So I'm spending my energy dollars in the wrong place. those of you who've read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, those $100 are for today, not for yesterday, not for the future. We also have people throughout our day that we interact with who, I will call them the energy vampires, the energy suckers, right? Now, some of them we can decide not to be around, right? You can choose who you want to be around in some respects. But I know at work, I work with a lot of energy vampires. And so I have to manage that and know when I'm going in, okay, don't let them get you down. But what they'll do is they'll steal your $100. Haven't you been with somebody when after you leave, you're like, oh my God, right? I mean, they just really drained you. Well, they were stealing the $100, right? There's also people that you can be around. Haven't you been around some people and you're like, oh, they leave and you just feel good, right? You feel awesome. They made you feel happy. Well, they're depositing some more money into your account. Again, those 100 energy dollars are meant for today, not for yesterday, not for the future. They're meant for today's productivity, okay? So, who you choose to be around can make a difference in your 100 energy dollars. You can also wake up with less than 100 energy dollars if you don't get a good night's sleep. Because at 2 in the morning, you're worrying about something when you should be sleeping. Okay, so make sure you're waking up with 100 energy dollars. Because if you don't, your body has to get that energy from somewhere, and it will start stealing from your cells. And it will negatively impact your health. And if you want to grow a speaking business or anything, you need energy to do it. Okay, so think about your dollars and where you're spending them. So, the next thing I want to talk about in trying to reduce that chasm is energy or things that we spend in the wrong place, okay? So in our society, don't you think there's almost pressure within America to be happy all the time? People kind of almost pressure us to be happy. There's a societal thing like, oh, just be happy, and you turn on TV and everyone's happy. But the thing is, in reality, this is life. In reality, sad things happen. People get sick. People lose their jobs. People lose relationships. People we love die. There are actually things that happen in our lives that make us sad or angry, right? And what we do, because there's societal pressure to be happy, we don't want to be sad. We don't want to be angry. So what we do, we are emotional garbage can stuffers, and we stuff those down, okay? Something sad can happen to me, and I don't want to feel that, so I shove it down. And then, because I'm having to shove my emotions down, I need instant gratification. I actually want to cry right now. Let's say that you lost somebody you love. You want to cry, but maybe you don't. Or maybe, like for me again, I could use the example of dating, right? I could say, well, that guy's a jerk anyway. Don't cry over him. But you lost something. You lost something that could have happened, right? So I don't. He's a jerk. I'm not gonna feel. So I push it down. Well, I want instant gratification, even though I want to cry. So what do you turn to? Drugs, sex, alcohol, shopping, gambling, you name it, right? Because you don't want to feel not
Sugar.
Happy. What? Sugar, right, Mr. Diabetes Man. You turn to sugar, right? And so what happens is that I'm happy in the moment, but I'm not, because I'm using a lot of pressure to keep this down, right? These feelings that I don't want to process. Well, have you ever tried to hold a ball underwater? Okay? It's hard, isn't it? So I'm using a lot of energy, this is all subconsciously, keeping these emotions down that I do not want to process. But they keep wanting to come back up. We're emotional human beings, we are, okay? We're not robots, we are emotional human beings. So by me keeping these feelings down, they're trying to pop up, which creates a lot of energy. So then I start going back to the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the shopping, whatever, you name it. What's your, drug of choice? Food, right? Or sugar, right? Or anything, exactly. What's your drug of choice? So what happens is you really should, and we're not really taught this, you should really feel your emotions. Why do they say after a death you should wait almost like a year? The reason why that came up is because it's to process emotions. It's actually to process, to cry, to feel sad, to feel angry. And guess what? When those emotions are allowed to come up and I'm not trying to keep them down, what happens after the end? It frees you in that anyway. So you get to what you wanted. You were choosing instant gratification in order to be happy. When in reality, what you do is you do cry and you process, and then this too shall pass. It does. Our emotions pass through us if we process them instead of shove them down. Okay? So that can create stress in our life, and we know that stress and fear and habitual patterns are what keep us between knowing and doing, and keep us between goals and implementation. So we got to get rid of that, right? These are ways to do that. Let's hear, there's another thing. So let's talk about our emotions, because we are emotional people. So remember as a kid on the playground, when there was a merry-go-round, right? And some of the kids would get on the merry-go-round and they'd start going, and they'd go faster and faster and faster. And if the merry-go-round kept going faster and faster, if you were on the sidelines, you couldn't jump on the merry-go-round, and the kids that were on would stay on. Well, guess what? That's just like our thoughts. So if we have a sustained period of negative thoughts, it's going to put us in a rotten mood. If we have sustained thoughts that are happy, it's going to put us in a good mood. So if we start on that merry-go-round of thoughts of negative, 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 that's going to put us in a bad mood. Well, guess what? It's just like the merry-go-round. Negative, you start to spin. Positive thoughts have a hard time jumping on. Well, it's true of the opposite. If you are thinking positive thoughts and that merry-go-round is going, you're getting more and more and more positive thoughts. It's hard for the negative thoughts to jump on. So what's the key then, right? How do we keep the merry-go-round going with positive thoughts? Well, the key is actually gratitude. And I know we've all heard this. And I know when I first heard that, I'm like, really? No. But honestly, if you practice gratitude, you know what gratitude does? Because you start writing down. Sometimes it's just like, I'm thankful I'm alive. I mean, it could be small. It could be, I'm thankful for my hot cup of coffee, right? But when you, guess what that does? Gratitude starts making you think positive thoughts. Get your merry-go-round going towards the positive thoughts. Another way to look at that is, when I look at my life today, oh boy, there's lots of areas that could be better. But there's a lot of areas that are really good. And so what it is you're looking at the same, my life hasn't changed. The situation as of today, January 11th, isn't different. But I can look at my life and pick out all the positive, get my merry-go-round going with the positive, or I could look at my life and look at all the negative and get my merry-go-round going with the negative, okay? And guess what? It's so much easier. You can reduce stress, reduce fear, and you can stay on your positive things that you're trying to do in your life when you're in a happy mood versus being in a negative mood, okay? Kind of back to the old saying we've all heard, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? The water level doesn't change. It's how you're looking at it. My life isn't changing today, right now, this very second. It's how I look at it. So you can put yourself in a positive mood, which will help you with your businesses. It's a lot more fun to do stuff when you're happy, right? Here's something which I wanted to get to. Again, I said stress, fear, and habitual patterns are why there's that chasm between knowing and doing, and goals and implementation, okay? How many of you have a morning routine? Okay, how many of you have a routine when you leave work? How many of you have a nighttime ritual? Okay, we tend to be habitual human beings. Researchers say we have between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day. But researchers say 90% of them are the same as yesterday. Okay? So again, here I am, and here you are, and we are trying to expand our lives. We are trying to live to our greatness. We're trying to live why we're here. What is your passion for being here? What is your reason for being here? We're trying to get to it, but we're caught in the 50,000, 70,000 thoughts per day that are the same. It's hard to get to this, right, when we're always doing the same thing. And it's hard to change because of the fact that we will go back to these habitual thoughts, right? Anything new seems foreign to us, so we tend not to change. So again, getting back to knowledge does not equate to change in behavior. We all know how to be at our ideal weight, and how many of us are really there? It's easier to maintain new thought patterns and new habits if you're not stressful, if you're not living in fear, okay? And it's easier to maintain these new that do 10%. That's all, yeah, gosh, that's sad. Right? So we need to be able to do that. Let me ask you guys a question. If 10 really awesome things happened to you today, and one bad one, what would you be thinking about?
The bad one.
How many of you would be thinking about the bad one?
How awesome.
Right? So look at what we're doing. We're focusing on the bad and not on the good. So it's easier to stick to new routines when you're in a good mood. It really is. Because I know when I'm stressed out, a cheeseburger sounds really good, not a salad. Right? Okay. I want everyone to close your eyes for a moment. Okay? Close your eyes. I want you right now to think of a lemon. Okay? Think of the lemon. I want you to go ahead and cut the lemon in half. And now I want you to pick up half of the lemon and put it in your mouth and take a big old bite of that lemon and squeeze a lot of the lemon juice in your mouth. Okay, open your eyes. How many of you, how many of you are going like this? How many of you are getting puckered cheeks? How many of you are like you're getting more saliva? Okay? Are you really sucking on a lemon? But you had a physiological response to an imagined scenario, right?
Amen.
Okay, guess what? That's what stress is about too. If you imagine stress, even if it is not there, I promise you, you will have a physiological response to it. And that cortisol is not good in your body. You can be having physiological response to imagined scenarios, not real life. I'll give you a story. This summer, my son, who's actually in graduate school now, him and his girlfriend were home for the summer, which I was really happy. I loved having him home. And we were out for breakfast, and it was a beautiful day here in Colorado. We were sitting on a patio, and we're watching the mountains, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and we're just talking, and I'm all happy because I'm with my son and his girlfriend, and all of a sudden, his girlfriend, Abby, starts her body's starting to change, and she's starting to get upset. She's starting to get shortness of breath. And I'm thinking, well, it's not, because, this is nice surroundings. And I said, Abby, what's going on? And she said, well, my dad is taking my mattress from my house up to college, and based on the route that he has to take, because he's leaving from work, he doesn't want to backtrack to the house, so he's already put my mattress in the back of the seat. And because the mattress is in the back of the seat, I have no idea if he covered it, if there's a 30% chance of rain, and what if my mattress is going to get ruined? It's like 8 in the morning, right? And this mattress is not going to be delivered till 8 at night. And so I looked at her and I said, okay, Abby, if you worry about this all day, first of all, the mattress may be delivered just fine, and now you wasted an entire day of your life over this, worrying about something that may never happen. So she was creating unneeded suffering. She was sucking on a lemon that did not exist. Okay? And let's just say, things do happen. Let's say the mattress did get ruined. Well, guess what? By 8 o'clock at night, don't you think she's already really suffered all day, and then the mattress is ruined, and she'll probably have a much worse reaction. Right? Whereas if at 8 o'clock at night the mattress is ruined and she didn't think about it all day, it's like, okay, now she's full, she's whole, she's ready to deal with it at the time. So I am not saying do not deal with bad things that happened, but I am telling you, do not deal with bad things that happened 1 second before they happen. Okay? You'll save a lot of unnecessary suffering. There's another study that happened. There's a Harvard study. This I find fascinating, okay? So back in 1990, they took men aged 70 to 85, and they broke them up into a control group and into a study group. And again, these men are 70 to 85 years old. And they took them and they did all their vital signs and their lung capacity, and they learned all about their physiological state. And then what they did is they took half of the men, and for 10 days, they said, be together, you're going to be enclosed. Just reminisce about when you were 35 and 40 years old. Think about it, reminisce. That was the control group. Then they had the other half, the 75 to 85-year-olds, they said, act as if you are 35 to 40. So they put them in this place that had furniture that was when they were 35 to 40. TV shows that when they were 35 to 40.
Mhm.
Clothes, everything was back when they were 35 to 40. Act as if you are 35 to 40 years old. Guess what happened after only 10 days? The men in the control group, they did their baseline vital stats, lung capacity, vision, no change. The men who acted as if they were 35 and 40 years old had better vision, better lung capacity, they had changes in their baseline vital stats. Think how powerful our brains are. Okay? Don't let your brain be your enemy. Let your brain actually be your ally. Okay? So stop sucking on lemons that do not exist. Here's another thing. I don't know if any of you have done this, but I call it feudal reactions to life situations. So this summer I was driving down I-25 to my house. I live in Castle Rock, and I was driving, and all of a sudden it started to hail. And I do not have good luck with hail. So back in 2012, there was a hailstorm that came through. I lived in Parker. 2 sides of my house needed repainting. My roof was damaged. My son's car was completely totaled, and my car had $5,000 worth of damage. Okay? Now roll forward to 2014. I get a new car, and I had it parked at work. Hail came through, and I had $6,000 worth of damage. So I don't have a good history with hail. So anyway, I'm driving down I-25, and it starts to hail. And I had just bought myself a new car for my birthday. And so I do what any irrational, completely irrational person would do. And I started yelling at the hailstorm. No, you cannot do this. I promise you I did. I promise you I was yelling at the hail, okay? Now, did yelling at the hail really do anything to make it stop? No, it did nothing, okay? How many of us have watched shows on TV too, right? Or you're sitting in a movie theater and the character on the screen is about to open the door, right? And you go, no, don't, right? Because you know danger lurks behind the door. And is yelling at the TV or the movie screen ever stopping the character from opening the door? Never. They always open the door. So what I'm trying to point out, which would seem to be obvious, but obviously not to me, is you have to look at what you can control in your life and what you cannot control. Now, had I had more damage to my car, what I could control is calling my agent. What I could control is taking my car in. Thank God this time it didn't have hail. But I remembered after the incident going, what was wrong with you? Like, why were you yelling at hail? And then when I do things like this, I always will go, well, where else do I yell at hail? Where else do I spend my 100 energy dollars on things I absolutely positively cannot control? And there's lots of times when you evaluate your day and you say, I want to grow my speaking business, I don't have time, or I want to do this and I can't. Evaluate where you're yelling at hail. Evaluate where you are sucking on lemons, okay? Because I bet you'll find there's a lot that you do. I'm almost done here. Last thing I want to talk about in closing, actually, I just lied. I'm going to talk about 2 more things, okay? So you know how I was talking about how, again, stress, fear, and habitual patterns are what is the big chasm, right? Well, one thing I have found with my life is needing to be in balance. And I think there was someone here in the room who said they like to talk about balance. Wasn't there? Okay. So when you look, like let's say you pull on a rubber band, right? You pull and you pull and you pull and you pull and you let it go. It goes flying across the room, right? So it's got this velocity that goes the other way. Well, what about when we are pulled on in life, okay? And I call what I have our buckets. We all have buckets. Yours may look a little bit like mine or completely different. I have a mother bucket. I have a career bucket. I have an alone time bucket. I have an exercise bucket, significant other bucket, whatever. Yours could be the same or different. And what I have found is that the buckets don't tend to really overlap. They're almost unique. Now, it's true I could go on a walk by myself and fill 2 buckets, alone time and exercise time. Or I could go to a barbecue with, say, a significant other and my kids. I'm with friends, I'm with my kids, right, I'm with my significant other. So I am filling, but for the most part, you can't fill them all at once, right? And so where I have learned myself is that when my buckets are really out of balance, like let's say I have a big project at work, because I work more than 40 hours a week, that is for sure, at my job. Let's say I have a big, big project, and I'm spending all my time on my work bucket, then my alone time bucket suffers, and my kid bucket suffers, and my significant other bucket suffers. Now it can happen for a little bit of time. Like if a week or two I really have to crank it out, I will. But I have found over time, if my buckets are not all in balance, that's when I get angry, that's when I get cranky, that's when I'll eat a Snickers instead of eating healthy. So I have noticed that balance is really important to me over time in order to keep me in those positive emotions. So I'm very careful with my buckets. I really should be working probably more hours than I do at my job, but I refuse to. Because if they want me there long term, I can't be there long term if that's all I do. So when you're looking at your business, make sure you keep your buckets in balance, because over the Christmas break or the holiday break, I literally sat and didn't do anything one day. I thought, oh my God, I don't even remember the last time I did that. But I think my body just needed a mental break, a physical break, a break. Because when I get up, I promise you, I go 90 miles an hour all day long. I really do. Now for the last thing. So, what I would like for all of us is to remember, of course, that life is a journey. It's really not a destination. And growing our speaking businesses or anything we're trying to improve in our life, it really is a journey. It's not a destination. Yes, we want to get there, okay? But we're here today, right? And so we want to make sure that we have happiness today. So I was down at a conference down in Dallas, Texas, and Sean Aker was one of the speakers. I don't know if anyone knows who Sean Aker is. So he went to Harvard, and he studied happiness. The first 2 years he was at Harvard, he was depressed, and he wanted to know what makes somebody happy. And so he started putting all of his energy into the study of happiness. And this is what he said. He said, happiness is a choice. And I know a lot of people will go, really? Do you know my life? Right? But this is what he said, and I found it really fascinating. He said, right now where we are in this room, that our senses can only take in so much information. Okay, so I can only hear so much. There may be like the vent system going off, or people talking, or maybe cars driving up. But I'm not listening to everything that's happening. Or I can see, but I can't see everything that's in this room. Or tactile too. What can you all touch? There's only so much information, even in this room, that we can process. He said, in fact, at any given moment, it's like a blizzard of information, always that's coming at you. And he said, we can only process a few snowflakes. That's all we can process. And he said, studies show pessimistic people will grab the snowflakes like, oh boy, I'm trying to give a speech in here and they're talking over there. Right, something negative, or, oh, it's so hot in here. Or whatever, pick out the negative. Or he said that happy people will go, I feel so blessed. I feel so honored to be spending an hour of my time with you, right? So I can choose the good, or I can choose to focus on the bad, because remember, I cannot process it all. I can only process a few snowflakes. So he did say that happiness truly is a choice. One of the things a lot of us live with is what's called the promised land mentality, right? I will be happy when I get the job. I will be happy when I get the boyfriend. I will be happy when I get this. Okay, what does that assure, the promised mentality? It's always around the corner. You're not going to be happy today. And again, if we manage our emotions, we are able then to have the capabilities to grow our businesses, to do all sorts of things. So I know that the way that I approach this is probably maybe even different than you were thinking that I was going to be talking today. But it really is imagining and being able to how we process our emotions, how we look at life, how we manage our stress, and how we manage our fear. That really is going to help you in truly all aspects. It's not just your speaking business. Okay? So what I want for you, or I wish for you, it's your lives, it's your choice, but I really wish you would have happiness today along your journey. Okay? And this is how I always close, is remember always that you are worthy, you are lovable, and you deserve goodness.